Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders Without podcast. Today, I have a special treat. I have a premiere. The first guest that is doing a repeat appearance in my show, my good friend Kim Wagner from Australia. We had a tremendous talk last week, and we barely touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much we could cover. And this week, at the end of the call last week, we said there's so much more that we want to cover that we have to do a follow up. And she was gracious enough to set up a time for the next week, which is today. Today is Friday, August 20th at 6 p.m. here in Toronto, for in Brisbane, right? In Brisbane, it's 8 a.m. in the morning. So thank you for waking up so early. Thank you for agreeing to do a
Thanks for having
repeat,
me.
and it's an honor to do a repeat for you. Being a repeat appearance on my podcast, such an honor. So Kim, once again, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. We have so much more to talk about. We didn't even
Oh,
get to the juicy stuff last week.
absolutely. So speaking of the juicy stuff, so the one thing that we had in common, and that's something that it's quite a tragic experience that we both went through, is that we both lost our parents to cancer. I just lost my father.
Mm,
Well, I don't like saying I lost him because I prefer to say he just returned home to God and the angels and my mother and all the loved ones on July 18th. My mother left us in February of 2010, also to cancer. And when I shared that to you, you said, "Wow, you also lost both of your parents." But the difference between us is that you lost your parents at such a young age. Mind you, I'm not that old, but for you, especially as a young mother, you were pregnant of your second child
mm,
while you lost one of your parents. So that was
yep.
very a very big tragedy. And the thing that we want to talk about is how did you manage? Tell us first about that, the mindset.
Mm,
How did you tell us about that experience, about
yeah,
that, and then we're
sure.
gonna dive deeper into analyzing that.
Yep, no worries. It was quite young. I was 20, about 26, I think, when my dad was
Oh,
first
okay.
diagnosed. And back
Wow.
then, so we're talking, I'm now 49. So we're talking quite a few years ago. And at that time, cancer wasn't really as prevalent as it is now. So, the
Exactly.
odd person had cancer. There were people there, there were people there. So it was a real shock, of course, and hard because it was my dad and I was young. And then about a year later or so, dad was already getting treatment. About a year later, my mum was also diagnosed. So my dad had colon cancer, my mum had breast cancer. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And of course, I didn't know how to deal with that. I was young, I was inexperienced. No one that I knew had both of their parents sick at the same
Hmm.
time. It was just unheard of. So
Yeah.
of course, I was really, really in a bad way. In fact, I don't think I was coping at all. I was just probably just surviving, to be honest, because I had no family of my own, no kids of my own. Um, and I know I fell pregnant with my daughter whilst both of my parents were ill. So she's now 20, and I fell pregnant with her. And then my dad passed away when my daughter was about a year old. So I would have been about 30. And then 2 months after my dad died, my mum was diagnosed. She had been in remission, and the remission, she was out of remission, and she'd had cancer again. And so I think that was 2 months after my dad died. So that was obviously traumatic because, I just lost my dad. I was not even finished mourning losing my dad because you know
Yeah.
what it's like. It's a horrible time.
Absolutely.
And so then, of course, my mum was sick, and then my husband and I did what we could to help her because obviously there was no one else to help her. Um, and then when I was 6 months pregnant with my son, my second child, my mum died. So that was just horrible. It was the most crushing thing that
Sure.
I can't even remember how hard it was. I've worked a lot on myself since then, but just looking back at what I went through, just, when you have a baby, anyone out there who's a mum, when you have a baby, you want your family there, you want your mum, you want anyone, especially your mum. And mum had died 3 months before I gave birth. So that was a
Wow.
really, really hard time. It was really awful.
Sure.
Mm. So,
Absolutely.
and not only the fact that I was going through the loss of both of my parents so quickly and in such a vulnerable state being pregnant, because you're very emotional when you're pregnant, but it was also then starting to
Sure.
think, well, and of course, no one that I knew had both parents that had died of cancer or had cancer. And then I was like, what the hell? Wow.
Yeah.
Both of my parents died of cancer. And back then we didn't know anything about genes. We didn't know anything about the expression of genes and lifestyle and so forth. And so, of course, everyone was thinking, and I'm talking everyone in my small town was thinking, oh, wow, Kim, she hasn't got a very good set of genes. You know, she's been dealt a rough hand. And so, of course, everyone was watching me, and I was starting to think, wow, if I've lost both my parents they were 56 and 59 when they passed away. If I've lost both of my parents so young of cancer, what's in store for me? What does my future hold? Wow, is it even worth, trying to do anything different? Do I have any chance to get through this? So of course, all of the emotions that were combining were huge, because there wasn't that much known back then. So we're talking 2004, my mum died, and so 2002, my dad died. So back then the internet was quite new, and all of the healing knowledge that has always been here was not really known, though. It wasn't really shared with the world. So what happened when my mum and dad both died? And of course, everyone's looking at me saying, oh, poor Kim, poor Kim. I started thinking, this can't be right. This you can't just suddenly have a healthy family and then suddenly two parents die of cancer. That doesn't just happen overnight. There's no family history. There's no reason that anyone's telling us why this happens. They're all just saying, oh, you're just unlucky. So I just thought that doesn't make sense to me. So I started doing a little bit of research with what information was out there. And that's when they were starting to let us know that a lot of things actually culminate to become disease within the family or within the body. So my first step, of course, was looking at the food, because there was a lot of information out there about organic food and about chemicals and how it affects our body. Mindset and lifestyle choices like that weren't even in the mix at that stage. It hadn't even been, no one was even talking about that. So I started looking at the things that I could control. So I thought, okay, well, I can't control what's happened in the past. I can't control anyone else, but I can control things like what I put into my body. So the first thing I did was I started investigating food. Started making the switch to as much organic as I could. Wasn't so much available back then. I made everything from scratch. Went back to basic cooking, like everything came from scratch. Lots of healthy foods, or should I say, lots of real food, mostly. Yes. And that was really interesting, because my friends and my family that didn't live in this country, I actually was ridiculed for making the changes. Like, why would you bother? Organic food is just expensive. It's just the same. There's no difference. You're just wasting your money. What are you doing? So I was ridiculed, and all the way through every single change I made, people were sort of just couldn't understand. But I was determined to keep going. So I kept going and made as many changes as I could in that kind of area. And then a few years later, I joined a Buddhist group in Cairns, and that was really amazing. So I went along there, and my Buddhist nun lent me a book. It might have been the first or second weekend I was down there, and lent me a book called The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And she said, you need to read this book. It's really amazing. So I read it, and mind blown. Like, that was the missing link that I needed for everything else that I was doing. And of course, what he was saying is that we have the ability to change our perception, and the way we think and perceive things in our life, in the world, affects us on a genetic level. So our cells respond to how we think, how we look at things, how we respond to things. And that was the missing key. That was the difference between putting all the good things in my body, doing exercise, doing all the things that are okay. Because you hear of so many people that are really healthy in what we call lifestyle, like they're marathon runners, or they eat beautiful food, and they do this, and they have good water, and they don't eat any junk food, but they still die. They still have these horrible ends. And so the missing link was actually our mind. So it's the mind, body, spirit connection. Everything is connected. And one thing that Bruce Lipton said that was the beginning of my change was that we are not our genes. The genes that we are dealt with, that's not what we have to surrender to. We have the ability to change the expression of those genes. Literally about 3% of disease is down to genetics and can't be changed. So that leaves 97% of variables there. So to me, that's what I started focusing on. So started working on my mind, started working on how I perceived things. I started working on removing things in my life that were causing me distress, things that I had the ability to change. I started getting into new friendships, not being around people that sort of, I'm going to say, bring me down. And I started being influenced by people that I wanted to be like. I wanted to lift myself and be around people that inspired me rather than made me feel bad about myself. So that was sort of the big beginning of change for me.
Wow, amazing. So much that we can cover. You mentioned something powerful. I mean, a lot of powerful things, but one thing that stood out is that, back then, even not long ago, like 20 years ago, there were not that many people who had this kind of diseases, but nowadays it's more and more prevalent. I don't know what it is. And I had this conversation with another amazing person I had on my podcast not long ago, is on the exact same topic of the increasing prevalence of all these deadly and debilitating diseases. And she said that, back then, 30 years ago, there was no difference between organic food and normal food, because there was no organic food. It was just
food.
food, just food. We were our parents and grandparents and so on before. There was no such thing. And I agree with you when I try to switch also to more healthy, especially going after organic food. Just like you, I get laughed at by people saying, "Why are you paying extra? This is the stupid tax you're paying." Just like luxury, you're just paying for the brand. This is the type of food for people who have more money than brains, like hippies and liberals and so forth and so on. So come on, just get real. Just trying to be. I'm no liberal. I'm not hippie. I'm not whatever. I'm just trying to be more healthy. But people didn't seem to understand that. So I went through that as well. So
And what I learned is that that's okay. They can have their own opinions,
exactly.
because at first it got to me. At first it made me cranky, and then I had lots of emotions, and then I realized that the emotions I was having to them was harmful. So they were harmful to me. So I just move on, and I'm like, righto, see ya.
Exactly.
and you
Exactly.
can do what you want. And I still have some friends now that that probably don't even know what I do. That I eat organic. That I make things from scratch. You don't need to say anything. You just do it. You just do it yourself.
Exactly. Not only eating but also exercising. Especially when I see a lot of people around me. I just turned 40 last year. I'm gonna be 41 next month. I mean, in October. When I see some of the other guys that I know that are in the 40s, I'm horrified. I do not want to look like anything like them. That's why I'm doing 1 to 2, 3 hours of biking whenever I can. I started doing push-ups last year. When I first started, I couldn't do 10 push-ups to save my life, but doing it
Wow.
every day for over a year now.
Repetitive.
I'm doing 700 push-ups a day. you know
Wow, that's
well, mind you,
incredible.
not all at once. I do like 10 series
That's a
of
lot of
70. you know
yeah. That's
and
a
and
lot of
because
push-ups.
yes, you know what, there's a saying that says if you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. Now, rain on shine, even if I have a call or whatever, even if there's guests coming, I say, listen, or dinner or lunch, giving guys 5 minutes. I just do my series and I just go. It's almost like something that I must do. That's the power
Mm-hmm.
of habits. So
That's right.
again, when you see people around you, th- of course we cannot change everyone, but they can be a source of motivation for us. Because for me, when I looked at these guys, I said, there's no way in hell I want to look anything like these guys you know A-
Absolutely. And also we influence other people as well. We don't realize it. So we can be doing our thing for many, many years, and suddenly someone will say something after many years and say, well, wow, I'm so amazed. I've been watching what you've been doing, and you've inspired me. Or I've now made a few changes myself. I've now started doing push-ups, or I'm now meditating more. So, I think that as long as we're true to ourselves, for me, it's about honoring myself and my body, because it's my body is the one I have for this life, and I want to
Mhm.
honor it and respect it and love it as much as I can, because it's doing such an amazing job. And the more
you
we
know
look after ourselves, the better our lives are.
Absolutely. And now I'm 40, soon to be 41. I've been active. I've been very into sport. I was a football player. I was a football coach. And honestly, now I'm in a much better shape than when I was even 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah,
kidding. I
I'm
could
not
never,
surprised. Yeah.
I could not even do 10 push-ups back then. I will tell you a funny story. When I first started, I still remember the day. It was mid-May of last year. I was staying with my with family over there. I just came back from Hong Kong. I was just late afternoon. I was doing my 10. I was doing 10 lousy push-ups. I was panting. I just finished. I was laying on the floor. I was counting very loudly, and all of a sudden the door opened. My two sisters, my sister's husband came knocking, saying, "Are you okay? Should we call 911?" I was on the floor panting. Said, "I'm okay." They thought I was having a heart attack. Say, "I'm okay. I'm just doing my workout." And when I said that, less than 2 seconds after that, I got, oh my God, I felt so embarrassed. So you
Mm.
putting yourself in that state after 10 lousy push-up. Come on, man. You can do better than that.
And
And
you
that
are.
was
You're
the
now doing 700.
well, I started first, 10 series of three, and each week I just added five more, five more, five more. By
Amazing.
October, I
I
got
love
to three
that.
series of 60s. I kept doing 600 push-ups till about a month ago, and after I just bumped it up to 70s. So it's all the power of doing a little bit, little bit, little bit.
And you just make a really good point. It's about even the most tiny step, the tiniest little step that we're making forward, any little change that we're making that's beneficial. If we just take
Absolutely.
tiny steps as we go, that's the whole thing. Look, I certainly didn't start from one space to here. It's been a journey. It's been a 15-year journey of really sort of working on myself every single day. And did I make huge quantum leaps back then? Absolutely not. Did
Mhm.
I make tiny changes? Yeah, I did. And that's the thing. And did I sometimes revert did I have some bad times? Absolutely I did. But did I get back? Yeah. So I think that people need to realize, we all need to realize that we are just basically a bunch of habits. All we do every day, we
Totally.
do the same thing every single day. So if we start a new habit and we do it consistently, well, that becomes our habit. It gets ingrained into our subconscious. You now feel good doing push-ups, and you now know how good it makes you feel. So
Hmm.
it's in your subconscious now. It's passed through, I guess, the barrier from conscious to subconscious. I think we
Absolutely.
talked last week about driving. It's the same thing. It's things that we do all the time. They become
Absolutely.
habit.
It's just,
And then over time, we don't even think about what we used to do.
absolutely. Just like for
Mm.
me, it's a small things that we do repeatedly that just, that makes a difference. It's not making a 180-degree change overnight. It's making
Yes,
even 1 degree, even half a degree today, and you keep that over time. You do 1 degree a
absolutely.
day, it's 30 degrees in a month. That's 365 degrees in a year.
Absolutely. And I love doing that. I love the 1%. If you could change or if you could improve something by 1% every day, that is huge,
Absolutely.
really big.
That's
Yeah.
a life
And the
changing.
ripple effect and every single thing that we're doing and every improvement that we make within ourselves, we are helping other people. And we don't know that necessarily, but consciousness connects. We are all connected. So every single thing that we're doing ripples out to everyone.
Totally, totally. It's all ripple effect. It's all about no, absolutely, absolutely. So now looking back at all this tragedy and all that you overcame. Um, so how did you overcome all of that? Was it through the help of friends, family, mentors, or just sheer personal will and desire that got you
Yeah,
out of that?
I really didn't have too much family around because we were the only ones really in the country.
Mhm.
And my friends were as supportive as they could be, but they didn't know what I was going through. No one can
Mhm.
understand unless you're there. So I just kind of, to be honest, did it myself. I just forged along, did it myself, found a few mentors, not that I knew personally, but I found a few mentors and I found some books to read. I was starting to, obviously the internet was becoming, there was a lot more information there. So I just started following people and reading as much as I could. I would like to say that it was an easy journey, but it wasn't at that time because
Mhm.
every single step that I made, every change that I made was questioned by everyone, like everyone, and it was a bit tiring after a while, to be honest. But I just kept on persevering, and um, now I am sort of where I am, and I'm still learning and growing. But unfortunately, back then there were no Facebook groups with people talking about. Dr. Joe Dispenza's got amazing groups, and we talk about the mind body connection, and there was none of that back then. So I just kind of forged along, and I had to trust my own intuition as to which way to turn. And sometimes things would be placed in my path, like that book from my Buddhist nun, and then of course the beautiful lady that was at that first weekend who taught Reiki, who was my teacher that started me in the healing space. So I think that the universe just put things in my path
Totally.
that helped me. So I was obviously meant to be here, but my journey to get here was very unique.
Speaking of that, there's a couple of things. I mean, something very powerful, even maybe touching. Like for me, I mean, I mentioned to you last time, if not, I forgot, is that the way I see things, especially after having my spiritual awakening, is that this life is a school, is for us to learn lessons. So when something happens to us, no matter how bad it is, how tragic, how painful,
Mm,
whatever, instead of
yep.
dwelling on it and being a victim, why me? What did I do to deserve this? Again, the power of questions, especially asking the right question. That's something that Tony Robbins emphasizes a lot. The power of asking the
I
right
love that.
question. So instead of dwelling and asking why me, what did I do to deserve this, I've started asking myself, what is the lesson in here? What I'm supposed to learn? Like for example, I
Mm,
use my own personal experience going through when my father is deceased and get diagnosed back last October. I started getting into spiritual books, and that's what really allowed me to see things at a much higher level. So basically, for me, the way I see that now, looking back, the fact that I went through this very painful period of seeing my father going downhill and passing away in a matter of few months, the lesson that I asked myself, what is the lesson for me to learn in that experience? The lesson for me was to be more patient, to have more compassion towards him and other people, as well as to basically allow me to have this spiritual awakening. Because
mm.
before that, I wasn't spiritual. So for you, Kim, you had to go through that as well. What would you say was a lesson for you? What were these two tragic events, losing both of your parents in just a short span of time? What was a lesson for you to be learned by the universe from that very dark time of your life? Because there's always a lesson to learn. What would you say was a lesson for you to learn?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. And
Mhm.
I'm going to say this and it sounds odd, but it was a gift. It's a lesson. It's a
Exactly.
gift. And it
Same
sounds
for
a
me.
horrible thing because we all know that we'd give anything to have our parents back. But the biggest gift that both of my parents dying gave me was to realize that you need to do things now. You need to live. Look, my mum and dad did a lot of things in their life. They were both immigrants, so they'd done a lot of travel. But I just thought, and I
A
looked
lot of
around and I thought, people,
sacrifices, for
a lot
sure.
of sacrifices. But, instead of being born, working, dying, I looked at them and I thought, they're 56 and 59. They didn't even make 60. No way am I going to get to that age and have regrets. So what that did for me is it just made me think, I'm just going to live every single day and do anything I want in a good way and learn and
Mm.
grow. So the very first thing I did was I said to my husband, we're not going to wait until we retire before we take the kids traveling. I'd already done a little bit of travel. So the very first thing I did was, as my kids were old enough, we got passports for them and off we went. So we have
Oh,
had the most amazing adventures. We've gone all over the world, really lived. I'm really glad at the moment too, since I can't leave the country. So I'm not wishing and pining. And see, to me, it's about don't have regrets. Don't get to the end of your life, no matter when that is, and don't look back and say, wow, I wish I'd done something. There is
hmm.
nothing that I have no regrets right now. If everything was to stop right now, there is not one regret. There's nothing I can say I wanted to do that I didn't.
Absolutely.
And for me, I have lived really a big life from when my mum and dad died. Well, after, of course, I mourned and started the healing, but that's my gift. Just live. And don't be scared of trying new things, because you don't want to get to that stage and say, oh, wow, I wish I'd learned how to sing, or I wish I'd painted, or I wish
Exactly.
I'd whatever, skydived. Just do it. You could die tomorrow. Just do it.
Might as well go with a smile on your face doing what you love doing.
Yeah, that's what I reckon too.
Much better dying while doing, surfing or skiving
Yes.
than a hospital and an ICU,
Oh,
full of morphine and
absolutely.
whatever. But
Let's
anyways,
live.
I love what you said. It's a blessing in disguise. I see it the same way.
Mm,
Like, let me ask you a question now. If let's say if your parents were still here, would you have been now on the same path that you are now? Absolutely.
no,
For me
no way.
personally, I know, because that was just like I said, a blessing in disguise for you to awaken. I see it, to see,
Hmm.
to pursue your real mission, your real purpose. Our mission is not just to chase the dollar or climb the corporate ladder, but to do something that's more meaningful. I see it that way myself.
Absolutely.
Do you see it that way
Yep.
too? That
Oh
was
my
just like I
goodness.
said, a blessing. That was a gift, the most beautiful gift that they could have given
Mm,
you, which was to open your eyes, so to speak, so to see that, hey, there's much more to this life than just chasing material things and whatnot.
absolutely. Yeah. And also, even though it was really hard for my son, I think
Hmm.
that with I think that with my mum dying whilst I was pregnant with him, I think that his experience is what set me ultimately on this path right now. So needing to find a way to heal my son, that was, and as any parent will tell you,
How old
that's a
was your
very
son at the time?
primal. Well, he was the one that I was 6 months pregnant with when my mum died.
Wow.
And so when he was born, even though all the doctors said he'd be okay, he had a lot of emotional issues. So physically perfect, but he had some emotional issues because effectively what happened was when he was in my womb, he experienced what I was experiencing in the first person. So he effectively lost his mum. And so he had a rough few years emotionally. But what happened with that is that's what sent me out. That's what made me so determined to find a way to help him. And so when I helped him and I had the training with Psych-K and I came home and I did the work with him and he changed in front of my eyes, that is probably the biggest catapult. So yes, I was already on the journey, but that was when I realized this is life-changing. Wow, I've just changed this kid's life. And he just has grown and grown and grown, and the most amazing human being. And I still occasionally do little bits of Psych-K with him. If he has, like for example, when he was going for his driving exam a couple of months ago, we did a quick little bit of work to stop him from being nervous and stressed about it. You know, so, but it helps to shape and grow. And then when I realized how much I could help him, I thought, I have to help everyone. I have to help everyone that I can.
Exactly.
And so that's the driving force. And so that's hence the extra training. And now I can work globally. So I can do Zoom calls and help people anywhere.
Tell us in a few brief sentences what exactly is Psych-K again, and what's the process?
Okay, so Psych-K effectively, it works with the subconscious mind, and you're able to balance we use the word balance, but change subconscious belief systems. So we're able to do that, and then that we're able to, I guess you could say, lock them in, and they're lasting, and it's very effective and it's very, very fast. So for example, when I'm working with clients the first time, we always work on self-love. I think I mentioned that in the last interview. So we're talking about the real basic stuff of I love myself, I trust myself, I am worthy, I'm enough. So we work through those kind of beliefs, and then I can basically change them and lock them in, if that makes sense. So what we're doing is we are effectively doing what affirmations take months to do in seconds. So, you know, we know that you can look in the mirror all day and say, I love you, I love you, I love you. But we don't actually know, we can't test whether or not it's changed in the subconscious. With Psych-K, we can do that. And it's very, very fast. And the other thing that is very, very powerful is that we can transform the perception of stress. So for example, if we've had a trauma in our life, like let's say with your father, I can help you to transform the perception of stress or how you react to that situation or condition or trauma. So whilst it doesn't take it away, we can take away that stress response. And that's huge, because that stress response, if it's left unchecked, it becomes bigger and bigger, and it almost becomes a part of you. And then it affects everything in your life. So that's what Psych-K does. And it's very, very quick and effective. And people change in front of my eyes. It's quite amazing. They become different people, and they're lighter and they're freer. Yeah, it's amazing.
Is that the new field of psychology?
It's no, not really. It's not really psychology at all. I mean, we do talk, I guess, a little bit about what they want to work on, but you don't need to talk it out loud. If you've got a trauma, we don't even need to speak about it. I can still help you to clear it without you talking about it. But ultimately, though, the client will talk about what they feel they need to. So psychology is fantastic. I think they work really well together. I think talk therapy is so strong and amazing. And I think it's very good to be able to verbalize and work through things. And then I'm on the side. And then once they've worked out and verbalized things, then I can help to clear them.
Wow.
So they work beautifully together. Yeah.
I will definitely have to do some more research on that, because that sounds like a fascinating field.
We might just need to do a little quick session one day, you and I.
Absolutely. Part 3.
Oh, no. We might leave that one just for you and
I. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. So something that I want to know as well is let's talk, you mentioned on your website the connection between the mind body. Tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. So what science seems to be doing now is separating things. So the body's here and the mind is there, and they're not connected, when in actual fact, they are so connected. As Bruce Lipton says, Dr. Bruce Lipton says that our thoughts are like the solution that our cells live in. So our thoughts Our thoughts are, if you read the book or when you look at his website, he talks about how when you're putting stem cells into different solutions in the petri dish, they grow into different things. And effectively, that's the thing. So how we look at something affects our thoughts, and our thoughts are directly linked to our cells. So our gene expression changes on how we think and how we perceive things. So we all have friends that are yet generally positive. We also all have friends that are generally negative. So how you look at something actually depends on how your body reacts, your physical body, not just your mind. So if you look at something, and even if it's something that's not necessarily good, if you can look at it and you can find a learning, or you can find something good in there. There's always something. Or you can be the person that looks at something that's a little bit bad and makes it so much worse. So those of us that look at things and can see the good, our mindset is a little bit different, and I guess the solution that our cells are in is more positive and upbeat. And it just means that our genetics means that the gene expression is more on the positive side. Whereas if we're always looking at something in doom and gloom, then that's more the negative side. And they often say that, your thoughts, you create what you think. So if you're thinking about bad things all the time, more often than not, negative things are going to come your way. But if you're thinking more on the positive side, or you can flip things and find some good, more often than not, you'll see good things. So there's a definite correlation between the two, and they are 100% linked. There's no doubt. And science has finally caught up and realized that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that, because not only everything is connected, but every one of us, we're connected. We're all energy at the base. Yes, I see. Another thing that I saw on your website that I'm quite intrigued about is, and that I love, found very beautiful, as you mentioned, the art of detachment, and you have a quote there that says, "Removing any emotional attachment to an outcome just sets you free." That's so beautiful and so powerful. Tell us about a bit more about that.
I learned that in my Buddhist group, actually, and that's what they said, that the art of detachment, it doesn't mean that you don't care, doesn't mean that you don't love. It just means that you detach yourself from the outcome. So you're not emotionally attached to what happens. And I find that really freed me, because in my younger years, I would get involved in everything. I was emotionally involved in everything. Even if it didn't even have anything to do with me, I would get involved. So what I have found over time is that by slowly learning the art of detachment, there can be chaos and drama going on around me, but it doesn't actually impact me. And I see that day to day, because a lot of people in my world are still taking everything very personally and taking it all on. Whereas I can see, and it's not that I'm not empathetic. I love people and I love to help people, but I've found that the art of detachment for me has helped me to help people more, because I can have a clearer mind. And so the only time it can be a bit tricky is if you're talking about your direct family, like your kids or your partner. That's sometimes you do have to stop yourself and maybe take a step back. But the art of detachment means that you're not getting emotionally involved and you have no emotional attachment to the outcome. It's very powerful.
I can see that working tremendously well in two key areas, which are business and sports. For example, in sports, me coming from sports, one of the things that's always holding us back, especially when you have to make that winning shot at the last minute, it's the stress, the pressure. What if I lose? What if I miss? What if I miss? In business, you want to make a big move. Let's say you want to invest, say, $20,000 on new inventory for your brand, or for you invest in a coach. What if I lose it? What if it's wrong with? Just go for it. Just detach yourself from the outcome.
That's
Because
right.
either way, you will win. Whether you win financially right away, or if it doesn't work, we will learn and win to the lesson that you will learn, and that might be even more powerful, more meaningful than the actual financial gains, because that is invaluable. The lesson, the learning, and I can see that. Honestly, I can see that if someone were to apply that in anything, especially business and sports, but because this is more like a business oriented type of thing, just detach yourself from the outcome. Sure, it doesn't mean be reckless, but be within reason. Just, you want to make a decision, because when you are, it's that stress, that pressure, that's what is holding us back. That's what is, preventing us from going to the next step, making that move, that decision, that phone call, whatever, to expand, to get to the next level. So I can totally see that. I'm going to start implementing that in my own life, especially in business. I have to make some key decisions in the next few days, I'm on a
Hmm.
crossroad right now here. So again, and one thing that was holding me back was again this fear, the fear
Yes.
of success, the fear of failure, and the fear of what if it
Mm.
doesn't work? What if it's a flop? So what? You
So
know?
what? And I often say to myself, what's the worst that can happen? I make a fool of
That's the
myself.
key.
I lose
Yeah.
a bit of money. Um, who cares if people laugh at me? They actually don't mean anything to me, and I don't really
Yeah.
care what they think of me. And when I got to that stage, and I do use Psych-K. Like if I'm making a big business
Mhm.
decision now, I will use Psych-K on myself to take away the emotion, because quite often the emotion that's attached to it is clouding my decision. So if you've got no stress about the decision, you can think about it logically. It makes it a bit easier. But the worst that can happen is I fail.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing else.
That's
And you know, people keep. And if you make a fool of yourself online, or you know, in front of your friends, they're just going to scroll past anyway. They really don't care.
yeah. And that's one of the key principles that Tim Ferriss, the global
Mm,
super powerful author of the 4 Hour Work Week, which is complete. It's,
yes.
it's it's considered the Bible of the online entrepreneurship. And
Mm,
one of the key principle is again coming back full circle to the power of asking the right question. What is the worst case
mhm.
scenario? Write it
Yes.
down. And when we might make, as we say in French, out of a small mouse a mountain. So instead, when
Hmm.
you write it down, when you say, okay, what is the worst? Okay, I might lose $5,000. I might have to move back with my parents, get a roommate, or get a second job. Okay, you're not gonna die. That's fine. When you realize it
That's right.
that way, say,
That's right. But what
what's
if it
gonna?
does work? What if it does
That's the
work?
thing. That's the thing. Yes. Wow.
Mm,
Is there any do you have any resources for people that want to learn more about not only the Psyche-K approach as well as
mhm,
the art of
mhm.
detachment?
There's some information on my website for sure. And
Okay,
so kimwagner.com, they can have a look on there.
sure.
And the Art of Detachment, I'm about to do a blog post actually. So
Oh wow.
I it's interesting you brought that up today. So there'll be some extra resources in there with some links to some beautiful places to check as well.
Let me know when that
I
audio
will.
piece is available because I will be
I will.
devouring it myself, and I will. You
No
know,
problem.
absolutely.
Yes.
Listen, Kim, it's absolutely an honor each time talking to you. That's
Likewise.
why you're the first person to be on the second time on my podcast here. It's for a reason. We can do a, I mean, you and me, we can do an entire podcast, just the two of us together and just talking
I think
weekly
so.
show. But we might do that sometime later because,
Yeah,
but who
maybe.
knows? Who knows? So,
Who knows where this might lead?
exactly. So again, I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Not only a very
Thank you.
successful person, most importantly, a person with a beautiful heart. You had some tremendous lesson that you learned in a painful way, but now looking back, they've been some of the greatest gifts in life, just like
Mhm.
for me. So keep spreading your message, keep shining your light.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
You too.
God bless. Have a wonderful day. I know it's almost 9 a.m. for you here.
Nearly
For you.
9.
Yeah. So have a wonderful day. Weekend. It's a
Thank
weekend for
you.
you.
You have a
So
nice night.
take care. We'll keep in
Thank you.
touch. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.